Shalom, my name is Yehoshua and this video is being made from Jerusalem. Pat Donald's Appeasing Islam. Well, the Islamophobes and the long index articulated in the video about all of the mistakes of Europe and the whining of Europe about America, there is in all, or most I should say, not all, but in most of Pat Donald's videos and his articulations, there's a very substantial element of truth, but it's only part of the story. Pat Donald, there has to be a context in which you understand some basic things that you don't, and it's very important to you personally, to your viewer audience, to your family, community, nation, to Europe, and to the world. And specifically, I'm talking about the end of the exile of man and mankind. Now, I know you're an atheist, and all that implies. Your secular humanism has had you climbing the ladder, and at the very top of that marvelous new epistemology that has been created in your superior mind of intellect of mankind's exile, has absolutely no room for negotiation. There's just absolutely no God. Okay, the fact that we need a context in history, it is this: the collapse of the local reality globally has begun. It began in February 26, 1991. It was repeated December 25th in the Soviet Union with the collapse of the Soviet Union. What was the local reality in the Soviet Union? It was communism. The next year in Yugoslavia, communism collapsed again. In Israel, Zionism collapsed with the murder of Rabin in 1995. The Twin Towers, capitalism, that's the local reality. That collapsed. It's imploding ever since. The Ba'athist regime 2003 was the local reality in Iraq, in Lebanon, and in 5 or 6 other countries around the world. Now, this is the context of what we're talking about. The collapse, the meta-narrative of the collapse of the Twin Towers on 9/11 2001 has very much to do with the two major monotheistic religions, namely Islam and Christianity. Both are in crisis, and there's fundamental transformations that are already proceeding and will continue to proceed through the years and decades ahead until a fundamental transformation. And that transformation is the God of the cosmos has imposed the end of man and mankind's exile, and the anthropologic, sociologic, psychologic model of man's mind that was his exile was giving to receive. Yours included, Pat, and so it is true of Chris Hitchens and every other atheist, and the popes, and the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the Jews, and the Maoists, and the Zionists, and the Protestants, and you name it. It's everybody. It's all inclusive. The whole world. Okay, it's finished, and the historical event is followed by that which replaces it. So that was giving to receive was the model. The new model that replaces it, the framework in which the East-West, the collapse of both models of East and West, they converge to the middle, and the framework is Humanomics in general, and its central organizing principle is receiving to give. Hebrew, kabel b'shvilatet. Receiving what? Receiving the authentic you to give the authentic you, to yourself, to the authentic you. Not yourself, the one that you know, but the one that you don't know. And to your spouse, to your children, your family, and community. That's the paradigm of redemption. It's the new cognitive behavioral science first principle. It's the central organizing principle of the convergence model and the post-collapse of the East-West models. This is the framework in all of this fiery rhetoric about appeasing Islam. Look, you know better than anybody, very well, Pat, that we have 1.2, 1.3 billion Muslims in the world, and significantly, the vast majority are very decent, peace-loving, moderate, and what are we talking about? Are we talking about 1, 2, 3% of this population is extremist? So when you indict the entire Muslim world, when for what 2 or 3% of it is getting up to, and all of the resulting dysfunctionalities on the psychosocial level, I think that's something that has to be reflected on far more than you have. But having said that, where are we in this cycle? Man and mankind has come to the end of his exile. We have to do certain things to confirm this, and we have to do it in Israel first, and we have to do it around the world, because that's the sequence, that's the order. Now, what do we have to do? When the local reality collapses, you have to deconstruct ground zero. You have to deprogram the mind of men and mankind's exile. You have to restore the authentic self that you don't even know. You don't even know this person, and then you have to heal from all the damage and injury of men and mankind's exile. Then you and a lot of other people have a lot of damage and a lot of injury from exile. Having said that, that's where we are, and today, the problem that we face around the world in general, but much more particularly in Israel, is the denial of the end of man and mankind's exile. And we need to end that denial in order to get on with the deconstruction. And so the analog, or so the logarithm, the sequence of exile was anger, denial, negotiation, acceptance. That has to be replaced by awakening, and our ability to sustain that cognitive presence of mind that is connected consciously to an authentic identity, which means by definition sustained awakening. It's awakening, and then atonement, which is a cognitive, not a behavioral faculty, but a cognitive faculty. Restoration of the authentic person that we've never known, and healing. So that's the awaken, atone, restoration, and healing. That's what replaces anger, denial, negotiation, acceptance. Now that's where we are, and the problems that you recite in your video, where you indict the Muslims of Europe, and you point out that they do not deserve more respect but less respect. I disagree with that very fundamentally, and the very nature and essence of the commentary of this video that gets to the content of man and mankind's redemption. There is a very significant body and number of people and intellectuals in the Muslim world who recognize it, acknowledge it, and say it's truth. And the fact that it's come out of Jerusalem in particular, and Israel in general, has nothing to do with it. It's just, this is what is. And I would hasten to point out to you, Pat, that this is something that you too are in denial about, as is Chris Hitchens and a number of other people. So we're never going to see the dialogic of this video on the front pages of Vanity Fair, or I should say not, at least for a little while. But this is where we are. So let me make an hypothesis. Secular humanism and traditional spiritualism converge, just as East and West converge. In this dialogic, it's my perception that spiritual humanism and traditional spiritualism are destined to converge, and a lot of other things are going to converge, and the result is unassailable truth. And what is the truth? Truth is the information that never changes, in finality, parenthetically, changing, parenthetically, in intentionality, quote unquote. I wrote that some years ago. Anyway, I'm Yehoshua Yaakov. Thank you. Shalom.